On March 5, 2021, Dundee, Scotland police searched a man's home while investigating a missing persons report and uncovered a horrifying truth. Benny Lin Burke and her young daughter were lured hundreds of miles from Bristol to Dundee by a calculating killer, murdered and buried beneath the kitchen floor. They had come to the UK hoping for a better life, and their deaths sent shockwaves that devastated their family thousands of miles away. Benny Lin Burke, a 25-year-old woman from the Philippines, was the hope of her impoverished family back home. Born in November 1995, she was described as intelligent, kind, and deeply responsible. From a young age, Benny Lin showed determination to overcome hardship, studying diligently to build a better future. Her father, Benedicto Aquino, and sister, Sheila Aquino, worked tirelessly to support her financially, enabling her to complete university. With her warm personality and dedication, Benny Lin was a family protector, once shielding her younger brother from bullies. In 2015, she met Lexington Burke, a British man nearly 40 years her senior, through a dating website. Their romance quickly blossomed, leading to a heartfelt wedding in Samar, Philippines, on July 28, 2018. A month later, on August 19th, Benny Lin gave birth to her daughter Jellica, bringing immense joy to the family. On August 20th, 2019, Jellica's first birthday, the family moved to the UK, carrying dreams of a stable and prosperous life. However, the marriage soon collapsed, and Benny Lin became a single mother, moving to a flat in Kingswood, 3 miles from central Bristol. Despite numerous challenges, she remained resilient, working at a care home and selling car vacuum cleaners online to send money back to her family in the Philippines. Standing at 4 feet 6 inches, Benny Lin was described by friends as a petite but strong woman, always wearing an optimistic smile. She quickly integrated into the local community, befriending the Mums in Bath group, who supported her with food, supplies, and emotional care. Benny Lin was not only a devoted mother to Jellica, but also the flame that warmed her family, always dreaming of a bright future for her daughter. After parting ways with Lexington Burke, Benny Lin moved to a first-floor flat in Kingswood, where she began to feel a sense of freedom and independence. She told her sister Sheila that the small flat was a turning point, helping her escape the difficulties of a failed marriage. Though single motherhood was not easy, Benny Lin maintained a positive spirit, caring meticulously for Jellica and ensuring her daughter had enough food, clothing, and a safe environment. Jellica, a lively 2-year-old, was described as energetic, confident, and full of personality. Benny Lin frequently sent photos of Jellica to her family in the Philippines, showcasing her pride in her little girl. To make ends meet, she worked at a care home for a few months while selling car vacuum cleaners online, a job that supplemented her income. Every penny she earned, Benny Lin shared with her family back home, becoming the pillar despite living thousands of miles away. She also received support from the Bristol community, particularly from Vicky Whip, a member of the Mums in Bath group. Vicky recalled Benny Lin as a sweet woman, always grateful even for small gifts like food or secondhand clothes. Despite her busy life, Benny Lin longed for friendship and companionship. She joined the dating website Filipino Cupid, hoping to meet a kind person to share her journey. This seemingly harmless decision unwittingly opened the door to an unimaginable tragedy. Andrew Innes, a 50-year-old software programmer living in Dundee, Scotland, was the mastermind behind Benny Lin's tragedy. Born in 1970 at a military base in Germany, Innes had studied at the University of Aberdeen and worked for prominent video game companies like DMA Design and Real-Time Worlds. He had lived in Japan and California with his Japanese wife and 3 children, but their marriage dissolved in 2019, leading to his deportation back to the UK. Settling in Dundee, Innes lived in isolation, harboring perverse obsessions. He joined 34 dating websites, including Filipino Cupid, where he met Benny Lin. Innes created a scraper tool to harvest data from these sites, targeting young women with small children. He ranked profiles based on age, height, weight, and motherhood status, prioritizing women aged 25 to 30 with young children. Benny Lin, a 25-year-old single mother, became an ideal target. In their initial conversations, Innes appeared friendly, polite, and caring. He offered Benny Lin a community relations manager job in Dundee with a £1,000 monthly salary and promised accommodation. However, Benny Lin declined, insisting she could work from Bristol. Innes also requested sensitive photos, which she firmly refused, showing her caution. Nevertheless, he persuaded her to meet in person. Despite COVID-19 travel restrictions, Innes drove over 400 miles from Dundee to Bristol, making Benny Lin uneasy when he had to sleep in his car due to unavailable hotels. This feigned kindness was the first step in his predatory scheme. On February 18, 2021, Benny Lin agreed to travel to Dundee with Innes to sightsee in Scotland, bringing Jellica and a 7-year-old child, referred to as Jane Doe to protect her identity, with little information available about her. The trip was planned to last only a weekend, so they packed lightly without sleeping bags or long-term supplies. In the car, Benny Lin video chatted with Sheila in the Philippines, introducing Innes as a kind person. Sheila, despite being 8 time zones away, maintained close contact with her sister, often talking despite the time difference. She recalled Benny Lin flipping the camera to show Innes, a tall, thin, slightly balding man. Sheila even joked with him, initially perceiving him as harmless. The next day, Benny Lin, Jellica, and Jane Doe visited Dundee landmarks, including the V&A Museum, Camperdown Park, and Overgate Shopping Center. Benny Lin sent photos and videos of Innes's house, expressing curiosity and excitement about life in Scotland. She showed Sheila a porch, describing it as part of her new experience. Photos of Benny Lin and Jellica in Dundee showed them enjoying the trip, unaware these were their final moments. By February 20th, Sheila grew anxious when Benny Lin suddenly stopped responding to messages, which was entirely out of character. With no response from Benny Lin, Sheila messaged Innes directly. He claimed Benny Lin and Jellica were in Glasgow with another man, a teacher she met online. Innes reassured Sheila that her sister was safe, even suggesting Benny Lin ditch her phone to avoid authorities, as Lexington was allegedly trying to gain custody of Jellica and deport Benny Lin to the Philippines. On February 21st, he continued saying Benny Lin was fine and happy with the new man. 4 days later, he insisted they were settling into a new life, and Benny Lin would contact her when safe. When Sheila demanded a video to confirm Benny Lin was alive, Innes sent an old video, deceiving her into believing her sister was okay. He claimed he would wipe his phone and computer data to protect Benny Lin from police, citing his desire to avoid legal trouble. These lies heightened Sheila's anxiety, but she clung to hope that her sister was safe. Meanwhile, in Bristol, Lexington and social services noticed Benny Lin missed a critical appointment, completely unlike her responsible nature. Lexington tried messaging, calling, and even slipped a letter through her door, but got no response. On March 1st, 2021, he reported Benny Lin, Jellica, and Jane Doe missing to the police, triggering an investigation by Avon and Somerset Police. Avon and Somerset Police swiftly traced a car that traveled from Dundee to Bristol and back during the COVID-19 lockdown, registered to Andrew Innes. This led them to his home at 21 Troon Avenue, Dundee. On March 5, 2021, at 3:20 p.m., officers knocked on Innes's door. He refused entry, claiming he was self-isolating and his daughter was bathing. However, through the door, they saw Jane Doe, fully dressed, and insisted on entering. Inside, the house was chaotic. The kitchen lacked appliances, cooking utensils were on the stairs, and a bin contained bedding, rubble, and debris. Jane Doe was separated by police and confirmed she was not Innes' daughter or related to him. Under questioning, Innes initially claimed he dropped Benny Lin and Jellica in Glasgow with a stranger at a cafe. But under pressure, he confessed, "I killed her. She's under the floor. Jellica's down there with her mother. I couldn't look after a child." It kept screaming. Innes was arrested immediately and Jane Doe was taken to safety. Police began searching the house, confronting a gruesome scene. After 2 weeks of excavation with help from anthropologists, archaeologists, and geologists, on March 19th, they found Benny Lin and Jellica's bodies in sacks, buried about 1 meter under the kitchen floor, covered with concrete and fresh bricks. The discovery stunned the investigation team, marking a turning point in the case. Post-mortem examinations revealed Innes' savagery. Bennylyn was stabbed in the chest and struck multiple times on the head with a hammer, causing severe skull fractures and internal bleeding. She was believed to have been killed on February 23, 2021, the same day Innes was recorded buying a hammer, cement, and gravel at a B&Q store on King's Cross Road, Dundee. According to his testimony, while Bennylyn was preparing food in the kitchen, Innes attacked her with the hammer, repeatedly striking her head. He then retrieved a long knife, which he called a samurai sword, from his office, stabbed her, and continued beating her with the knife's handle and hammer. The entire ordeal occurred in front of Jane Doe, then only 7 years old. Over the next 2 to 3 days, Innes kept Jellica alive, sexually abusing her before strangling her to death, believed to be during a game of hide-and-seek. He wrapped the mother and daughter's bodies in sacks, covered them with tarpaulin and blankets, and buried them under the kitchen floor, which he was renovating. Jane Doe recounted Innes using a heavy hammer to strike Bennylyn's head and witnessed Jellica's murder. She also described being abused by Innes, handcuffed, gagged with socks, and paid sometimes £2.10 after each assault. DNA evidence on clothing, handcuffs, and condoms in the house corroborated Innes' crimes. He also had chlamydia, a sexually transmitted infection, matching Jane Doe's test results, further confirming his depravity.
The officers again tried to get in but were refused, and Innes cites that his daughter has just came out of the bath and is unclothed. That's the reason why they can't come in, but at this time they see a young girl, fully clothed, standing, and this is visible through the gap in the door. To their credit, they persisted, and Innes eventually allowed them access to allow them to conclude the missing person inquiries for Avon and Somerset. So as that questioning continued, Innes again confirmed about Benny and Jellica being within Dundee, but he had dropped them off at Cumbernauld and left them in the care of a male. The officers then managed to speak to the young girl on her own. She confirmed who she was, which again raised further alarm bells, which the officers then challenged Andrew Innes, and at that point he said that he'd murdered Bennylyn and Jellica and they were beneath the kitchen floor.
Despite no prior criminal record, Andrew Innes revealed himself as a controlling and obsessively depraved individual. After his divorce and deportation from Japan, he lived in isolation in Dundee, nurturing perverse thoughts. Having lived in Japan and California with 3 children from his ex-wife, his marriage's collapse left him bitter and resentful toward women. Innes joined 34 dating websites, using a self-made scraper tool to target young women with small children, ranking them by age, height, weight, and motherhood status. Before meeting Bennylyn, he searched online for murder rates in Scotland, what is chloroform used for, and underfloor storage, indicating early criminal intent. On February 12th, he and Bennylyn arranged to meet in Bristol. After luring her to Dundee, he prepared meticulously. On February 23rd, he bought gravel and construction tools. The next day, a skip was delivered to his home. He claimed he attacked Bennylyn because she reminded him of his ex-wife and a former girlfriend, whom he believed had betrayed him. However, CCTV at B&Q showed him calmly purchasing murder weapons, contradicting his claim of a spontaneous act. Innes also stated he considered dumping the bodies at sea, but chose to bury them under the kitchen floor due to ongoing renovations. His actions demonstrated cold calculation, belying his defense of uncontrollable rage.
I mean, the depravity in this case that Andrew Innes has shown is second to none. Myself or any of the team have never experienced and hopefully never will experience anything of the like again. Some of the officers are still affected by this to this day and are seeking support from it. They're traumatised and it's an inquiry that they'll never forget.
Andrew Innes' trial began on January 31st, 2023 at the High Court in Edinburgh, presided over by Judge Lord Beckett. Innes rambled and feigned distress, admitting to killing Benny Lin and Jellica, but denying murder charges, citing diminished responsibility due to mental disorder. He claimed extreme anger upon seeing Benny Lin resemble his ex-wife from the neck down and a former girlfriend from the head up, women he believed had hurt him. He blamed his use of steroids for Crohn's disease, claiming a self-increased dose of 40 milligrams per day caused hallucinations and voices in his head urging him to act. He even recounted attempting to castrate himself with an electrical cord to prove his mental instability. However, psychiatrist Dr. Gordon Cowan, after 8 meetings with Innes, found no evidence of mental disorder at the time of the crimes. He noted that if Innes had a severe mental disorder, he could not have performed normal tasks like buying weapons or driving 400 miles without anyone noticing abnormalities. Jane Doe's pre-recorded testimony was one of the trial's most heartbreaking moments. She described the violence and abuse she and Jellica endured, portraying Innes as ruthless. Innes denied abusing Jane Doe, calling her a liar and her story implausible. However, DNA evidence on clothing, handcuffs, and condoms fully refuted his defense. He shocked the courtroom by stating that if police had arrived 24 hours later, Jane Doe might also have been killed, chilling the audience. After a 5-day trial, the jury took just 2.5 hours to convict Innes of 2 counts of murder, raping Jane Doe, sexually abusing Jellica, and obstructing justice. On March 8, 2021, Judge Lord Beckett sentenced him to life imprisonment with a minimum of 36 years before parole eligibility. He called it one of the most heinous crimes ever tried in a Scottish court, emphasizing Innes' brutality and lack of humanity.
Considering the whole circumstances, the punishment part on the 2 charges of murder will be one of 36 years, backdated to 8th March 2021. This does not mean that this is a sentence of 36 years. You are sentenced to life imprisonment, and you will serve at least 36 years before you can be considered for release on parole. It will be for the parole board to determine whether you will ultimately be released, and they will consider the safety of the public in reaching that decision. All of the sentences will be served concurrently and are backdated to 8th March 2021. I certify that charges 5 and 6 are sexual offences within the scope of the Sexual Offences Act 2003. You will be subject to notification requirements indefinitely. Whilst it is academic given the length of your confinement, I also direct the Clerk of Court at the appropriate time to refer details of the relevant convictions, charges 2, 5 and 6, to the Scottish Ministers for your name to be included in the list of persons unsuitable to work with children. That is all.
Benny Lin's family, including Sheila, Benedicto, and Lexington, traveled from the Philippines to attend the trial. They were devastated hearing details of Benny Lin and Jellica's deaths, describing Benny Lin as the light and hope cruelly extinguished. Sheila branded Innes pure evil, while Benedicto believed he deserved the death penalty for taking the lives of a gentle mother and innocent child. Their pain deepened thinking of the fear the mother and daughter endured in their final moments. After the tragedy, the family campaigned for Kanlungan, a charity supporting Filipinos in the UK, especially victims of domestic violence. Benedicto vowed to dedicate his life to protecting women and children's rights, turning grief into purpose. Sheila still called Benny Lin's phone to hear her voice on voicemail, unable to accept the loss. The Bristol community held a memorial at Brandon Hill Park, placing flowers, candles, and balloons inscribed, "You are loved, you are remembered forever."
For me, she's a very happy person. And yeah, she's a loving mother as well. So where she goes, she brings the kids everywhere. Until now, we cannot believe it until now that she's not here anymore.
Police Scotland, with Interpol, investigated further, but found no other crimes by Innes. However, Jim Gamble, former head of a child protection agency, warned that Innes may have targeted other victims, and the case serves as a painful reminder of the dangers posed by predators masquerading as kind. What are your thoughts on this case? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel for more videos. Thank you.